first one that I think is really important is the ability to learn, and particularly intellectual curiosity. Second one is EQ, and with that goes a degree of self-awareness. And then thirdly is the objectivity, the listening, the ability to analyze. And I'm going to give you a fourth, which is the ability to inspire.
So the top 3 skills that I would look for future leaders is the first one being authenticity. People being authentic and really walking the talk, as we call it. And I think leaders need to be curious as well. They need to be curious about people. They need to be curious about innovation, digital. They need to be curious about different areas, because that creates that creativity. And finally, I would suggest people to build their confidence. And when you build your confidence, it's really around being able to take decisions. And I think having a view is really key for a future leader. You need to have a view on the topics at the table and bring ideas to that table as well.
Number 1 is ownership mindset. So I've spoken before about the importance of de-risking the choice for someone who's making that decision. And being able to take an ownership mindset is one of the best ways of being able to demonstrate that you can take on that role, whether that is the head of a team, head of a department, or the head of a company, or on the board. It's thinking about what are the decisions I would make if I ran this company? What are the big issues? What are the threats? What are the concerns? Rather than what is so natural, which is to just be focused on me, my team, my division, my area of expertise. So really having that mindset when you're at the table, when you're in conversation, to fight for and argue for the things that will make the company succeed, rather than just yourself or your own team. I think that really stands out. That's your big tick future leader from someone who's kind of looking at you. The second one I'd say is learning plasticity. So it's the ability to take feedback without arguing back, without fighting back, without getting defensive, and to be able to demonstrate that you've taken that feedback on board, you've considered it, you've come back and asked for clarification or challenged if you disagree, but when you agree, that you've actually implemented it. And again, there's rarely much that's more impressive than seeing someone consistently take feedback. When leaders and CEOs kind of ultimately get asked to step aside, or you're even fired from the job, usually the conversation at the board is, can this individual be coached? Yes, there's a problem. Yes, there's an issue. We've got a concern here, but can we coach them? Can we get them through that? And that's where the learning kind of ability, plasticity really matters. I think the third for me is around that self-belief and confidence, but it's evidenced in the ability to make bold decisions. So making decisions without having to wait for all the data, right? So we've got to be able to make decisions with incomplete data. And so not just waiting for one more data point, one more person, one more confirmation, but being able to make that call, even if it's difficult, even if it's in opposition to what everyone else is saying or thinking. So those are the 3: ownership mindset, learning plasticity, and the ability to make bold decisions.
For me, the top skill sets a future leader is able to demonstrate include an ability to be open and honest. No individual at any level is a complete expert in everything, so it's really important that somebody is open and honest and able to put their hand up when they don't understand something and ask the questions. Secondly, to me, it's somebody who speaks up, somebody who is willing to voice an opinion, be out there and help drive the conversation, even if that conversation happens to be uncomfortable. And then somebody who's a team player, somebody who's willing to get involved, help drive the solution, even if it's outside of their strict day job.
Empathy is really important. And I'm not sure that's necessarily a skill set. I don't know to what extent it's learned. at later stages in life. But I do think that empathy is really important to enable others to deliver much more, right? All of themselves into the working environment. I think cultural acumen and globality, a bit of a global mindset, recognition, openness, effectively to differences, right? To different perspectives, to diverse backgrounds, to all sorts of diversity, I think is really important in leaders of today. And then I'd say expertise of some sort. So usually leaders will come up one line or another. Maybe they're an expert in certain products or capabilities. Maybe they're a technology expert. Maybe they are a governance expert or a regional expert. And it's important that one goes up a certain line, perhaps collects knowledge elsewhere within a company, but then is able to bring all of that expertise together and recognize it in others to create a portfolio of different skill sets to deliver an outcome that is much better than an outcome that will be delivered by a group of people who look, talk, walk, and read the same way.
So here, I would say there's some universal skill sets that that everybody points out to when talking about leaders and what makes a good leader. And there are things like being assertive and being a decision maker, being a challenger. And I agree with all of them, but I also think that we need to have different types of leaders, because if everybody is exactly the same kind of leader, it goes slightly against the whole concept of diversity and having different types of people. And it doesn't. I don't just mean people that look different and are, different genders and different backgrounds, but people that are leading in different ways. So I think ideally we shouldn't have a top 3 skill sets. We should have a range of skills that are applicable for different kind of leaders. And if one leader is leading by being assertive and a challenger, and this is the style of leadership, then it's great. But we should have a range and a different types of leadership that maybe are slightly more subdued or leading in a quieter way, or whatever it is that they're doing in their roles. But I do think that we need to encourage having a completely different types of people and different types of skills and different type of leadership, and that's going to make it diverse, really, in a true sense of the word. Otherwise, we all become, what we, I guess, originally strive to be is, copy the leaders that we see, and we see predominantly the same kind of leader out in the industry. And I don't think we all want to become exactly like that, because it defies the purpose.
When identifying future leaders, I think there's 3 attributes that you really need to be able to succeed as a leader. First is your ability to inspire. Inspire others and lead others is crucial to be a successful and effective leader. Secondly, it's your ability to execute. So do you have a proven track record of delivering in whatever field you are, be it a technical expert or be it revenue generation? And lastly, the ability to be decisive, but to be constructive in your decisions. So having that ability to know what you want to do and execute on it. Leadership is really not about perfection. So you can't get everything right, but you need to be able to make decisions and be comfortable with the decisions that you make.
I think the first thing is to know yourself, because what does leadership or progression mean to you? For some people, it's about becoming more technical and doing more technical work. Some people want to move up the management scale. Some people want to move into adjacency. So I think really knowing yourself and what you want is quite important. And secondly, then, I think if you want some sort of progression, ask for it. No one's going to notice you just sitting in the corner. You need to go for it and ask for it. I think thirdly, you need to think about how to develop your softer skills, how you network with people, how you engage with people around you, how you cooperate, how you deliver, what's expected, all the sort of softer skills that you would expect for someone who wants to progress in their career. And then fourthly, I think it's about actually asking someone. So as we spoke about, if you don't ask, you don't get. So thinking about preparing for a meeting where you speak to your line manager about how you progress and all the things that you can do that are needed to progress and the help that you need to do that.
I found the best way to ask for opportunities is to actually step back and think about the area you work in and think about the enhancements that are needed in that business. So in effect, you're creating your own progression opportunities. If you think with a business mindset and you think about what improvements your firm needs in your role, then you're making it easier to create an opportunity that you can thrive at, that your managers may not have thought of, and it shows that you have initiative. That, I think, is the best way to start the dialogue on opportunities, and from that, other opportunities will follow.
A future leader who is looking for progression and leadership opportunities really need to do a number of things. One is have open and honest conversations with line management to understand what the opportunities are, what skill sets they need to demonstrate, and a path to navigate there. I think on top of that, though, a future leader needs to adjust their timeline. The perfect role doesn't come at the perfect time, so you have to be open to being flexible on either the role or the timeline, and sometimes both. And then the other thing I would do is suggest that as an individual, you take a step back and take a real honest look at yourself and really assess whether you're demonstrating the skills that you would want to see in a leader, and whether there are things that you actually need to work on.
It's an interesting one. I don't know that I've ever asked for leadership responsibilities. What I've always asked for is more to do. So, I remember 23 years ago, when I'd been with the company for a couple of years, I went to my supervisor at the time and I said, I am intellectually bored by 10 a.m. I'm still busy at 10 a.m., but I'm just bored intellectually. And so I have more capacity. Give me more to do. Let me take stuff off your plate. And in the process, get more work done, get work done in a better way, smarter. And I've always done that. And I think that's probably paid off. So it's never been asking for more responsibility. It's been, or empowerment. It's always been about asking for more accountability. And I think accountability leads to responsibility, empowerment, and progression, promotion, right? But I'd strongly encourage aspiring leaders to hold themselves to a higher standard of accountability than anyone else might be able to hold them. And if they do that, they'll get more, for sure, but they'll also be at peace with whatever outcomes come of it when they're holding themselves to a higher standard of accountability than anyone else is able to hold them to. So one of my bosses a few years ago actually said, hey, we'd like you to move to the Middle East and you'd be responsible for our Gulf region business. And I said, okay, can you tell me more? Like, what is my responsibility? What would I be doing? And he said, never forget this, he said, you'll figure it out. And at the time, I didn't realize that was probably the most empowering thing anybody had ever said to me. because he was giving me the license to go figure out what I should be accountable for. And he was smart enough, maybe he was smart enough to know that I would hold myself to a higher standard of accountability that he could ever hold me to. And so I've tried to do what he has done throughout my career, which was always to hire adults, treat them like adults, and guess what? They be adults, and they hold themselves to a standard of accountability that would then produce the outcomes that we should always look to produce.
Future leaders should understand that one management style doesn't fit all. They should get to know their employees on a professional level, but also a personal one, and remember that behind every colleague there is a person with their own story and aspirations.
The main broader skills that leaders need is one, to be able to articulate their views concisely and clearly. Secondly, it's to learn the art of constructive challenge. And what I mean by that is that it's good to debate and challenge and share your views, but you must do that in a constructive manner. And that really is the essence of emotional intelligence and becoming the trusted person in the room and showing that you have the potential to be a leader.
The best example I was ever given about EQ is that as a leader, you need to think about yourself as walking around with a torch in your head. And anyone who comes into your light should feel differently when they exit that light from when they did when they came in. And you need to be very conscious and very aware of the impact you have on that individual. True EQ is when you understand the impact that you're having on other people, and you're able to influence them, and so that when they come out of your light, they feel so much better.